We are back yet another Tuesday where we will be discussing the Detroit Lions. I am your host, Drew, and with me as always, my co-host Mike. Mike, how are you?
Just as handsome as ever, Drew.
You're looking pretty good today. I'll give you that.
I appreciate it.
So Mike, what are we starting with today?
Well, we will get to the week 3, but let's kind of just talk about what's going on, kind of like just what's around the going on around the NFL. Win list in undefeated. Who do we got?
So I'm gonna share my screen so we can discuss this a little bit more in depth here.
All right.
So if you've never been to this website, there's this excellent website called Tankathon. And for every major sports league in America, NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, they do a homepage where they list the draft order for that particular team at every point in the year, and it's broken up across the year by how the NFL would decide it. So you have your lottery teams, for lack of a better term, your wild card, your divisional conference, and your Super Bowl predictive teams. An excellent team.
Miami as a Super Bowl predicted team.
Well, right now they're 3-0 and they're the number one team in the AFC. So
yeah,
the NFC has a 3-0 team and the AFC has a 3-0 team. So they're the Super Bowl favorites right now, according to Tankathon. But what we want to talk about is down here where we have the Las Vegas Raiders at 0-3 to start the season. And 0-3 has usually been the marker for it's incredibly unlikely that you are going to make the playoffs. Like the stats are against you. But there's some other surprises here. Houston, no. Seattle, no. Atlanta, no. LA, Chargers, yeah, that's kind of a surprise. Arizona's at 1-2. New Orleans is at 1-2. San Francisco, Tennessee, we all thought they would take a step back. Cincinnati, a bit of a surprise. New England, I'm surprised the Jets have a win, to be honest. Indianapolis, a surprise. Here's a surprise, Chicago.
I'll say that's the biggest surprise I've seen so far was just the fact that Chicago is not like 0-3 and just struggling. They've pulled it together.
Yeah. So, won the game in the rain. Can't remember who else they beat. It wasn't Minnesota.
If you click on them, maybe it'll say.
Lost to Green Bay, beat Houston. Right. Okay.
Houston. Oh, yeah.
Not exactly Giants. So just thought that was kind of a fun. So if you'll notice, Detroit is right there in the middle, smack dab in the middle, 16th. And then here are the Rams down here where they typically always are. 29th in the conference championship. So that was kind of fun. Vegas, made the trade for Devonta Adams, and this was going to be their year to compete in the AFC West and that kind of stuff, and just hasn't materialized. So they're just a notch below those other teams. So, and then there's just been a slew of injuries. Mac Jones got hurt. Trey Lance got hurt. The injury bug is just all over the NFL, including the Detroit Lions, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got Tracy Walker.
Achilles, and that sucks because if he's not able to play next season, so like he got hurt early in this season, right? So he will have the remainder of this year to have surgery and start the recovery process all off season. And hopefully, like, he might even be able to compete in like training camp or whatever, and probably not go hard in the preseason. But his base salary goes from $3 to $11 million next season.
Yeah.
And here we are with Romeo Oruwariye. He got hurt early last season. He's still not playing. We could be seeing the same kind of thing now for Tracy Walker, and that's a real unfortunate occurrence because he was playing as well as anybody on our defense, and now we don't have him, and it looks like he's probably going to miss some games early next year as well. So, It looks like Deandre Swift is going to be out until the bye week. He's been dealing with an ankle issue. He sprained his shoulder against Minnesota, and this is what we've always been concerned with about Deandre Swift, like is the slow accumulation of like nagging injuries.
Yep.
Started off like gangbusters, but unless he's 100%, like I don't think that you get that player, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
So now we're going to be without him for a couple games, and I don't know that I loved what our running game looked like with just Jamal Williams and Corey Reynolds. Craig Reynolds?
It wasn't as explosive, for sure.
No, it was not. And so that's going on. Ragnow is still apparently recovering from the groin injury. And we just have an absolute litany of players on the PUP list. You know, Vitai's on there now. Hopefully we'll get on Oruwariye and Kramer back after the first 4 weeks. And, you know, we still got Kabinda, Josh Paschal, Jerry Jacobs is still working back from his injury last season. Jamison Williams is going to be brought along slowly. We might see him at the latter half of the schedule. But yeah, we're just really, really banged up. Aiden Hutchinson was dealing with a thigh issue. Jonah Jackson has a finger that has held him out of a couple of games. So
hold on. I'm kind of going through in my mind everybody you listed.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear Jeff Okudah's name.
Yeah, so knock on wood. Jeff Okudah has been a bright spot for the Lions thus far. I saw a graph on Twitter, or not a graph, but I saw a statistic on Twitter that was like he has gone up against Devonta Smith, Terry McLaurin, and Justin Jefferson in consecutive weeks, and he has allowed not many catches, and like his PFF grade is not amazing, but he is grading out like a starter, and he is in large part contributing to limiting those players again. Yep, there it is.
I got you, fam.
Yeah, you do. Okay. So if the pattern holds here, he will give up 4 catches this coming week, right? So that's just however many catches in whatever number week it is, apparently. So
yeah, but just about.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's the guy that we've been talking about doing a second contract watch and looking at some of the guys that are going to be up for extensions or renewals or fifth-year options.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys, and it's been a big question mark throughout his entire career. Can the guy stay healthy? Is he going to be a good starting quality? He was drafted number 3. Right. You absolutely need to be a starter. You need to be even better than a starter. Right? You need to be in the top half of the league, or a top 10 elite kind of guy at that draft position.
At this point, I would hope that he we're going to talk. Yeah, we're gonna talk a lot about tempering expectations and being able to change your mind when we get new information this episode. No one in the chat yet. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So
we got some lurkers though.
Maybe. So
you're there. You're just not able to type. Come on, buddy.
Yeah. Come on, Funky. Where are you? So there they are.
There we go. Joey and Crimson. Welcome.
Joey Bonesaw.
Question for you. Are these the same old Lions when results don't change and similar mistakes happen that have held us back? It's hard for me to believe.
So I guess my answer to that question would be the same old Lions as I remember them don't fight this hard. So here's kind of the thing that I think that I've kind of hung my hat on, so to speak, since we started doing the podcast is you need blue chip talent combined with a blue collar mentality. And I think the coaching staff has brought the mentality, and I think that's good. And I think people are buying in to that. And you're even starting to see players on other teams praise and notice the job that they're doing, which is excellent. So the problem I think is you need the talent, right? And just like it's not been enough time, even though it's been 2 draft classes, they really haven't made a splash in free agency to add new talent to the team. It's mostly been prove it deals and re-signing their players to build depth. So I understand. I mean, like, there's been a lot of hope, and with hope comes the desire to accumulate wins to like prove that hope is valid.
Yeah.
To me, it's still year 2 of a rebuild, and it's still a rebuilding team. I mean,
that's exactly what I was going to say. Like,
yeah.
You know, when anybody, I mean, a lot of us will just sit there and schedules come out. We see what's going on. Let's go through week by week and guess which games are wins, which games are losses.
Mm-hmm.
Week 1, everybody assumed after getting pummeled last year, Philadelphia had a great offseason. They did nothing but get better. Granted, so did we, but I mean, that was everybody pretty much picked us to lose that game.
Yeah, they are ahead on the curve.
Right. Yeah. They were just ahead. And then against Minnesota, I think most people picked us to lose to Minnesota as well. So to me, I'm just like, we've met expectations, except we actually exceeded them because we didn't get blown out in either game. Like, we were either leading or really close, put a big fight up. So to me, the same old Lions would have gotten blown out and didn't even meet expectations. Whereas like now we're like, yeah, we probably aren't going to win those games, but damn, it was close.
So like, yeah. And so like, I have a problem with close games. Like it eats away at me, and I'm sure Joey's feeling some of the same things here. You know, and like a lot of the fan base, like Lions Twitter, Facebook, that kind of stuff. We're gonna address that, Crimson. That's a good point. It gnaws at you when you're close and you don't get there, right? But you got to remember, like, this team is one of the youngest rosters in the NFL, and it's only going to get younger still next draft class. No matter who they pick, they're going to get younger. So, like, those players are going to come in and they are going to replace people like Brockers, you know, who knows? Like, we have a bunch, like Anzalone's on a 1-year deal. I would imagine that they take another linebacker at some point in the draft to at least eat up a roster spot or give Chris Board a chance. Yes. So like Joey makes another good point here. Like, and I like this last sentence that he has here. I also need to remember it's a rebuild, but I do feel like that game was winnable. It just slipped away.
Yeah.
So maybe we should talk about that.
And that's what feels the worst. That's
right.
why it feels like the same old Lions, because it was, you know, we snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, and that's very same old Lions-ish.
Yeah, it is. So like what we said last podcast was like this feels like a season of like a tale of two halves in every game, right? So like you know, what was it? We come out and have a great second half in the Eagles game, and if we'd had a first half anything like that, we'd have won that game. And then we jump all over the not the Redskins, the Commanders, and you know, we let them back into it in the second half of the game, week 2, and then here in week 3, like we you know, we got out on the Vikings early, and then here comes the slow, meticulous glacier style comeback where they eventually break through and like, and then they picked up the win. And yeah, that sucks, you know, but like what I tell myself through week 4 or through week 3 here is the Lions are 1-2. And like, it took us until week 13 last year to get our first win. So like, I'm pretty happy with that. It certainly allows us more opportunities. And like next week, we're playing Seattle at home, and then we go to New England, and they just lost Mac Jones for what looks like more than 2 weeks. You know, they have the eternal Brian Hoyer as their backup. So, I mean, I don't imagine there's going to be too big of a drop off there, but like, he's also not Mac Jones. So,
right. Yeah, like we've we're pretty, like you said, we're really young, and I'm going to pose a question. I'm going to give my answer, then I'm going to let you answer.
Sure.
So, one of the things I've seen a lot on social media around the Lions pages and sites is Dan Campbell on the hot seat? He's making bad decisions? He should have not kicked the field goal, and that cost him the game. And I don't think he's on the hot seat.
No.
And I think people need to remember we're 20 games into a just gut the team and start over rebuild. Our cap situation was horribly poor.
Still not good.
It's still not good, but getting better.
Yeah.
But we also had so many overpaid, underperforming guys on the team that this is just a gut the house kind of rebuild. Mm-hmm. And we're only a year and 3 games into it. He is not on the hot seat.
No.
And what really drives me nuts is the fact that he's a young coach.
Yeah.
He's going to make mistakes. He's going to learn. Hopefully, he's going to learn from them. But we can't expect a coach who's essentially in, his 20th game with the team. He was only an interim coach for a few games in Miami before that. He's not going to be making, Bill Belichick, Sean McVay, Andy Reid types of decisions all the time. He's going to screw up every once in a while. And I love the fact that he owned it right away and didn't hide from it and appears to have learned his lesson. So I think he's fine. We just have to understand that he's going to be, he's human. He's going to make some mistakes. What are your thoughts on Campbell and a couple of those questionable calls?
So I'm going to get to the calls thing here in just a second, but my take on Campbell is that I don't know if this.
His calls, his coaching calls. I thought the refereeing was fine.
Yes, hang on. So, I think that, what you said, he's a young coach. It's a young front office. It's a new ownership group. It's a young coaching staff. They're almost all first timers. The whole organization, literally top to bottom, is growing up together. Yeah. And that just does not happen quickly. You have to go through a draft, and then your next draft is a little more familiar, and your next OTAs and your training camp and your preseason, and you are always running into new scenarios. You have what brings continuity is being able to go and do those things together time after time after time after time, right? That's continuity. Yeah. Good organizations have continuity. The Patriots, the Steelers, right? Teams that have been good.
The Steelers have had 2 coaches in the last 45 years or something?
Does that contribute to them winning? Yeah.
Yeah, it has to.
They don't turn over their quarterback position very often. They don't turn over their OCs very often. They have continuity, right? There is when you show up in the building, hey, One Pride.
Yeah, what's up, One Pride?
When you show up in that building, you know the deal.
Yeah.
You do exist. So, but the calls. So, I was thinking about this because I have said, at least through the first 2 weeks, that I think that there's been at least one call that I would not have done. I didn't enjoy the onside kick in the Philly game. I thought that there was some, questionable field position calls inside the red zone going for it on 4th down against Washington. The thing about going for it on 4th down, to me, which is where he gets in trouble with should I or should I not have made this call, is that they're so horrific on 3rd down.
Yeah.
Is that the choice to go for it on 4th down? It's they might as well, hey, Funky, they might as well just be we're going to call on play on 3rd down so that we can go for it on 4th down and have a better chance of converting.
It feels like they did, because every time we threw a pass, it was 3 yards short of the sticks. And I'm why are you not trying?
I hate that. So when I see that now, my thought is they've already discussed this and they know that they're going for it. Yeah. Next play, right? Now, to be fair, they were something like 4 for 6 on fourth down conversions, and I believe one of them was a touchdown or got them to the one. So like, I understand that like that's going to be a part of their DNA. Fine. However, if they are tied or in the lead and they are in the red zone, you need to take a scoring opportunity. Like you definitely need to take advantage of that. So like he said that he thought that he should have gone for it on fourth down and not kicked that field goal. Yeah. Okay. So like Eric Eager, who we interviewed a couple weeks ago, put out a stat on Twitter that said going for it on fourth down would have been, based on the analytics models or whatever, like would have given them like a 5% better chance to win that game. So like the math, as it were, supported Campbell's gut.
Yeah.
Right. Those are the only 2 field goals all season that Austin Seibert's missed. So you didn't expect that when you trotted him out both times that he'd push it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So like my thing is, I think that Campbell has given percentage points back through the first 2 weeks. One of those was a win. I'm not in love with going for it on fourth down as much as they have been, yet they have been relatively successful at converting those. Yep. To me, the answer is they need to figure out how to convert in 3 plays. Yeah. So it's going to be more difficult to do with the injuries that have occurred on the team. But
I think he just got a little nervous at the end. Like, you know, this is a big game. We could do this thing. If we kick a field goal here, I mean, I don't know. It's still a touchdown, but it's no longer a field goal to tie, which is probably what he's thinking about, right? Because we were up by 3 at the time. And if we kick a field goal, they have to score a touchdown to win. They can no longer just, you know, go 30 yards, 40 yards up the field and kick a long field goal. They have to score. So I'm sure that was, and like you mentioned, you know, Seibert has been pretty solid throughout the year. So I think that played into it.
Shannon, who I've never seen before in the chat here, has asked, can we run down which Lions players who would be who in a Star Wars movie? Like, is Aiden Hutchinson automatically Han Solo? Just wondering. Now, Shannon could not have
so much. Oh my gosh.
Do you know her?
Yes, I do, and she's the best.
So, Shannon, if you have not already, please subscribe to the podcast. But, her comparing Aiden Hutchinson to Han Solo infuriates me.
She does not know that, but
she did not.
Solo is not Drew's favorite.
She could not have possibly have known, but I just absolutely hate the character of Han Solo. So
is he more Luke then?
I don't know. So like Aiden certainly has that like grinder worker mentality, but he also kind of has like this pretty boy mentality. So I guess Han Solo is kind of the right pick, you know, in a lot of ways. I can understand that. If there's any comparison to make, it's Jared Goff as Darth Vader, that's for sure. So like so one of the things we wanted to talk about today is like, do you want to talk about the game first, or do you want to talk about changing your mind first?
Well, I want to throw out one other quick.
He's got a lot of charisma.
Because we were talking about Hutchinson. I think you mentioned how you were a little disappointed, and maybe it was pre-stream, about how he's like, well, he's not quite getting there. He's not being as big of an impact. Now, granted, he had 3 sacks in week 2, which was a record for the Lions for a rookie, and he did it in a half. But he's still, I mean, he might not be getting sacks every game. And it may not look like he's getting as much impact, but he is number 1, tied with Karlaftis as, you know, the most pressures among rookies. So this, you know, Trayvon Walker, he was the number 1 overall pick. I don't believe he has 3 sacks yet either. So like,
he has his best plays, and like this guy, I mean, I think he's going to be a really interesting player.
Yeah.
His 2 best plays this season have been in coverage, and he's a 6'5", 275 guy. Like, he's bigger than Hutchinson. So like he had an amazing interception against can't remember, but anyway, the Colts it was. And he had another play where like he dropped back and like stuck with like a wide receiver or something. It was just unbelievable. But like Joey makes another great point. Joey, I'm loving these comments, man. It's easy for teams to neutralize the number one guy. We can improve our defense when he'll be an absolute monster. And that's just it. Like I've been like, he's got 9 pressures. He's got 3 sacks. He's made some other good plays, but yeah, you're right. Like they are committing a tight end to chip and to help on him. Like he is getting double teamed. Like, and the only thing the Lions are asking him to do right now is to pin his ears back and just rush the passer on every fucking play. So like he has not had the opportunity to like play against the run. Like we are terrible against the run. The Lions are allowing it because they want him working as hard as he possibly can to affect the quarterback, right? So, and he's getting there. And I don't think that he was a Bosa. I don't think that he was a Myles Garrett when he came out of college. I think that he is a worker who's going to be like, he needs someone else that's going to flush the quarterback out of the pocket. So like one of the things that I am currently super interested in is that if the Lions get an opportunity is to get him a running buddy that can do something in the draft. Like Romeo Okwara's beat up, Julian Okwara's not good enough, and like Charles Harris has yet to show up, right? So like he's fine as a depth guy, but he's not a starter. And if you got another guy that was like, well, you can't double team both of these guys, then I think that we could really be looking at an improvement on the defense. But you're right. It's not difficult to neutralize one player in the NFL.
That's why we need a team.
Right.
It's one player doesn't win or lose a game.
That's why the rebuild is not done. So Jamal Williams can be Lando.
Look at overall stuff before we get into our game specifically. I'll have to scroll a little bit before I get to the Lions.
Yeah.
So we're down here as 27th overall with a 61.6. We are under replacement, lower than replacement value.
So if you're orange or red, you're under replacement level.
Yeah.
So like a yellow is like average.
Well, that can't be average. Like we're 27th.
No. They're ranked 27th amongst, but like the grade itself, the color itself represents being like, if you have all 32 teams, there is a line that was like, this is what we would consider to be average, whatever the statistical category is, right?
Yeah.
And the entire league could exist above that line if all of the people doing that particular thing were doing it better than expected. It's just that it's not a traditional ranking on when it comes to PFF, when it's like the average is right down the middle. That's a statistical thing. It's not how PFF does their scoring.
But what I did want to note though is like, I know we played well for most of this past game. We played well for a good chunk of the Philly game. And we played well for enough to win in week 2, right?
Yep.
But yet we are still, if we look at these scores, like across the board, 61, 66, 57, 51. We got some really, like our best is 78. And I know you don't see it up there, but I bet you can guess which column that's in. It's the run game. It's the only part of our game that is any good right now.
Right. And then Swift went down. So like,
yeah.
The thing that I find good about those numbers is that those were all oranges or reds last year. And so so I have said repeatedly, like I have a 3-win plan for any team that's trying to get better. And that's like, take what you did last year, add 3 wins to it. And then you are on a 3-year plan to get 3 wins every year. Right. Yeah. And so that's really hard to do. But like, Lions had 3 wins last year. I'm hoping 6 plus this year. That's kind of my base. That's my expectation or my benchmark to see how they're doing or what have you. But like, yeah, if you break it down by game, you start to see like they played well against Washington, right?
Yeah.
They played.
That was a win. Weird.
Yeah. Right. So like they ran it really well against Philly, not as well as against Washington. They had a good defensive line, not as, and then the worst that they've run it all year. But, Deandre Swift, I mean, he and Williams got as many touches as one another. And like, that's not the same for like the first 2 weeks. So, I mean, like they're currently going to miss him. He's a difference maker. So like, I would imagine you see a little Justin Jackson, is that his name? Well, so Crimson, while you're bringing that up, I'm going to answer one of Crimson's questions here. He thinks the biggest problem is who on the D-line is a run stuffer. Well, that's supposed to be McNeil's job, right?
Yeah.
However, they are sending the house a lot to try and affect the quarterback. And like, they're asking all of their defensive linemen to get to the quarterback as fast as they can, a huge percentage of the time. And so like I was listening to the athletics podcast today at lunch, and they were talking about the Lions-Vikings game, and they were like, the Lions are blitzing 40% of the passing plays that they're running up against. That's a huge percentage. And so like they are running man coverage more than almost anybody in the NFL. And like if you've got the horses to do that, like Miami does, cool. Or Denver or somebody,
right?
Go ahead and run press man. They have one guy that can play press man, and that's Jeff Okudah.
Yeah.
And like, so, and like we, PFF, I know Funky doesn't like PFF, but I love them. So like,
that's right. So did the other 32 NFL teams, Drew. You're not.
Yeah, I know. I'm in good company. Hooray. But like, PFF put out a stat that like tracked how often teams in the NFL are running zone versus man coverage. And it basically breaks down to in early downs, teams are more likely to run zone, right? So first and second down, teams are like 40-45% likely to run zone. And then it basically switches over to man as you get closer to like having to convert to a first down, right? Because you need to
make
win
it hard.
one-on-one, right? And so, but the Lions are not doing that. The Lions are blitzing and playing man coverage, and like that is a recipe for giving up a lot of yards in the NFL. And they just don't have, I think, the quality of talent on defense quite yet to run that particular scheme. So like, to me, if we want the defense to play better, I would play more zone in the early downs and try and defend against the run a little bit more, and then maybe start blitzing on like second, third down, play more man, that kind of thing. But like, there needs to be, I think, for this talent level as it stands right now, there needs to be a commitment to scheme first, as opposed to like, it's a green light, the ball snapped, everyone just go, rush to eat as fast as you possibly can, right? So like,
right.
But I think that scheme is necessary to make up for a lack of talent, like a deficiency in talent. And then when you have talent, then you are more flexible. You can do different things. So let's see. It doesn't help when we don't have a clear number. So Amani played the absolute worst game I've ever seen from him last week.
His entire career. Yeah, it was horrid.
He got absolutely abused. He was penalized 6 times. 2 of those were either offset or declined. So he had 4 accepted penalties. And then Mike Hughes, our starting nickel corner, played worse. So like,
let me find him on the list here.
Yeah, he's all the way at the bottom.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, there are those 2. So like those red numbers, that's get them off the team numbers.
Yeah.
So like we've been talking about second contracts. If Amani, I mean, he's coming back from some kind of nagging injury. I don't know if it's still affecting him. I would hope so, because it's been so bad. But like, you can't give this performance a second contract. You just can't. Like, I'd rather have him not on the team than have him signed to like a team friendly deal.
Yeah, I mean, even like the only year that he was a starter, a good starter quality was his rookie year, and he only had 215 total snaps.
Right.
which he's already got 146 so far, right? So
Yeah, he
he
missed
wasn't
week
playing
2.
much. I mean, he made the most of his time, but once we started playing him more, the quality dropped quite a bit. So you can get lucky a few times, essentially, which kind of what happened in his rookie year. But once you actually have to play consistently, that's where the really good, the quality people step up because they can do it consistently.
Mm-hmm.
He's not there.
Yeah. So I want to talk about what Funky's put in the chat here. So like, I've been thinking about this, what he's effectively said here quite a bit. So like,
this one.
Yeah. So he says the grading scale is so janky into ridiculous. How is a pick 6 a negative 1.5, even if it's completely on the QB? Yet if a QB gets sacked by a free runner, it's a negative 2. So like, what he's doing here is something that I see as a very common detraction from PFF, which is so what Funky has done here, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm just saying it's not what PFF does, is he's taken the result of the play and associated it with the score on that play, and that's not what their grading system does. So right. So the example that they give on their website on how they grade a play is luckily a play between Aaron Rodgers and the Detroit Lions, right? And so it was a couple of years ago. Aaron Rodgers throws a bomb, I believe, to Davante Adams, right? And the ball bounces off Davante Adams' fingertips, and then a Lions defensive back intercepts the ball, right? They don't knock Aaron Rodgers for that result, which was an interception. What they do is they say Aaron Rodgers played that play as well as he could have played it. So they're going to grade him positively for what he did, which was to put the ball in a spot where his receiver could have caught it, right? So Aaron Rodgers did his job. Once the ball hit Davante Adams' hands, Aaron Rodgers no longer has any responsibility for that play. Right. So from that point forward, Aaron Rodgers' impact on that play is now nothing. So the ball, it's a ball, right? It took a weird bounce or whatever on this one individual play. And so it happened to be intercepted. Now that's going to go down as a negative stat for Aaron Rodgers. But what PFF is trying to say is that that's not on Aaron Rodgers. He did his job on that play. The expectation for that play was that he was going to put that ball on a catchable location for Davante Adams. He did. It didn't happen, but the result is not on Aaron Rodgers. So if you are anybody that has ever said, hey, that pick, that's not on Jared Goff, like his pick 6 in week 1, where, I mean, what happened was Hockenson runs the wrong route, not on Goff.
Yeah.
Goff throws it to where he expected TJ Hockenson to be. A Philadelphia linebacker jumped to tip the ball, and that tip happened to end up being picked off by another Eagle who then ran it back for a touchdown.
Yep.
So, right, I understand. So, but what PFF is grading is not the result of a play. It's the process by which that player is expected to have performed during that play. Yeah. So it's not intuitive.
Eric Eager as well. I'm like, because I remember last year, obviously Stafford had 17 interceptions, but he was still graded very highly. And one of the things I had questions on, like, A, how is that? And then how do you handle things like you just said, receiver runs the wrong route? And he kind of talked about that exact same thing. Like, all right, well, they also have high quality people doing these evaluations that have been in the NFL. And I think one of them, I think he said that one of them actually is is now a quarterback coach or something with one of the teams. But anyway, they've got people that they know what these routes are supposed to be and where they're supposed to go generally. And they know when things are amiss. So
and they have 2 people grading each play for every player in the NFL, and then those 2 grades are compared against one another
because they're doing it in the blind.
Right. So, and if there are discrepancies, they're discussed and then adjusted if they need be. So my point is, Jared Goff is not going to get knocked very hard on that pick 6 because if Hockenson had run the route that was expected of him to run, Jared Goff probably would have put it on his numbers on that particular play. So, like, Jared Goff is still not graded well based on PFF. Like, but people are praising his stats. Like, they're praising the results of his play. He's still not playing the quarterback position very well, unfortunately. Yeah. So, like, he is playing it as well so far this year as he played it last year for the Detroit Lions. What the difference is that the team around him on offense is better. Like, Ragnow missed a game, but he's played, a couple of the other two. Sewell's on year in and looking like a great right tackle. Decker's on board. You've missed Vaitai and Jackson for a couple of games, but outside, I mean, like, they're basically running the ball a ton and it's being effective, and that's setting up play action for him. So, and like Amon-Ra St. Brown is in his second year and he understands, and now they're utilizing him not just in the last 7 games of the season, but starting out in week 1, they're getting him the ball, right? And so he's now the security blanket for Jared Goff and someone who's reliable, who traditionally does not drop the ball, even though he's had a couple drops this year. So, and the drops play into it, but like Jared Goff is completing like 58% of his passes. And, like, they're not all drops. Like, there are plays where he is left on the board.
So one of the things that they do is they have what they call turnover-worthy plays. Those are the ones where you chuck the ball and the defender drops it and he's like, oh my gosh, that was an interception. Right. Or it was maybe just out of reach kind of thing.
Go in the upper right-hand corner here, go to the key and we'll read the definition of what a turnover-worthy play is. So, and while you're doing that, I'll answer Funky's question here. So how do they know what route was called? So, like, once again, I'm referencing back to our interview with Eric Eager, right? He talked about this. Like, there are concepts in the NFL that get run, and then like you hide those concepts based upon like what formation you're running, and they have figured it out. Like, they give out the information to all 32 NFL teams. So like those teams are incentivized to tell PFF what their offensive scheme is so that they get back better data. So PFF has assimilated that from every team in the NFL and has, at least in part, a pretty good idea of what in this play it would, what at any particular team, based on like the personnel, the alignment, what position they were in the game, and what those teams have told PFF, what they are likely to do, what that looks like, and all that data. So they are basing that information off of, what they have seen on film and what the teams have actually told them. So it's not just guys sitting in a room guessing.
Right. It's people that have been in the NFL.
Right.
Played in the NFL.
And Funky says here, dude got hit on the throw. That pick 6 is on the O-line. You're right. It is. And that's probably why Goff was not graded very poorly on that particular play. Like, it's very possible on their +2, -2 system that he basically got a 0 for that play, which means that he didn't impact it or negatively impact it. So it's most people would say, hey, bad play, Jared Goff, like you threw a pick 6.
I've said that with Stafford last year, right? OBJ's second game that he played, the route, there were 3, it was trips on the left, 1 was on a fly pattern, and then the 2, OBJ was on the inside, and they went up and they both went to the right. And that just kept the defenders together, and he was supposed to go up into the inside. But because he basically followed the other guy, they had twice the number of defenders there. Right. And one was playing inside, one was playing outside. Stafford wasn't expecting that. He was expecting him to go to the right, therefore pulling his defender over there. And then it was a quick throw, and like, that wasn't on him. But they can see those things. They look at every single play that a team does.
Yeah.
They've seen these routes before by these same teams, right? Like they've seen that formation from the Rams in the past. They don't just run a play once and they're done. They're like, oh, I've seen this before, probably many times, and this guy didn't do it right. We're not gonna call bad on the quarterback on this one. We're gonna grade the receiver wrong, or a -2 on that.
I think we would be surprised at what the graders, the knowledge that they have about like what is going on in the NFL. I bet it's kind of looking like the NFL. If you just sit there and watch it, it would look like a different game. But anyways, a turnover worthy play, right? A pass that has a high percentage chance to be intercepted, or a poor job of taking care of the ball and fumbling. So like, there's obviously some wiggle room there in that definition, right? But like once again, one of the things that we learned from Eric Eager is that every statistic, in the NFL is in some way subjective.
Yeah.
So there's always, it doesn't matter what we're referencing. It could be completion percentage or QBR or touchdowns and interceptions. Like those are all subjective stats in their own way. So
yeah, the aggregated stuff like QBR and passer rating.
Right.
Somebody put a value on the number of yards times the percentage of plays are passes times, like someone put a value on all those things subjectively to come up with what they believed was the best rating. And so they used pass rating for years, and they were like, oh, that kind of sucks. Let's do something new. And they came up with QBR, which was more accurate, but still subjective, because again, somebody was putting labels on different metrics through a math problem together, and now you get a QBR. And this is really no different, except it's a little bit more subjective, which is actually going to give you a better outcome when you can go, you know what? I know math says this, but I just watched that play, and that offensive line let the guy right through. That sack wasn't on the quarterback or whatever. So being able to do that subjectively allows you to actually get a better and more accurate score.
Right. So one of our key points today is being able to change your mind, right?
Yes.
So whether it's QBR, passer rating, a PFF grade, or simply watching the game yourself and making up your own opinion as to what happened, like one thing that we need to do better as fans is to be open to new information and then to adjust our opinions, our expectations, and our views on whatever it is that we're impassioned about football, and be able to say, maybe this isn't the same way that it was 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Maybe the NFL has changed since then. And in what way has it changed? And if we can figure out how it has changed, then we should readjust our thinking, right? So how often have we heard coming into a year, like, this team has made this particular adjustment, right? Or they're going to try this new wrinkle, or they drafted this player or added this player that gives them a new dimension. Like that's evolution of football happening in real time, game to game, week to week, season to season. So when we learn about it, we should be open to the idea of like, hey, maybe the fact that we didn't have a 100-yard runner in a game doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to win that game. Or we did have a 100-yard runner, and yet somehow we still lost. Because that is what happened to the Lions in the first 2 weeks, right? Deandre Swift had over 100 yards rushing in game 1. We lost. I believe he had under 100 yards rushing in week 2. We won. So if a 100-yard rusher is so, okay. If a 100-yard rusher is so integral to winning a football game, you would think that if you had a 100-yard rusher, your odds of going and winning the game would be increased an absolute ton.
Yeah.
It does not work that way. So now we need to learn why and readjust. So that's why I like PFF. Like, I like PFF because it is bringing a new way to look at football to me. And as someone who has not played and who has never worked in the industry, like, it is digestible for me to be able to understand how football is changing. So, yeah.
So I did want to. I'm going to go back real quick, and then we'll be done with the PFF stuff. But I did want to call out because that's part of the stuff in the chat. Like, well, they don't know what the play is called. We're not in the huddle. You know, there's option routes, and they specifically say that. Like, yeah, we're not in the huddle, but we're trying to grade what a player attempts to do. You know, they talk about that. Most players are clear in what they're trying to do, but sometimes there's not. Maybe there's an option route. And what they do is a lot of times they'll grade 0 on a play where they're like, I don't know, like maybe he was supposed to cut here and didn't, and it was on him. I'm not really sure, but I don't want to give him a negative, but I also don't want to give him a positive. We're just going to not grade this play and call it a 0 and go on from there. So That's kind of the other thing that they do when it comes to the I don't know factor is they just take that out of there and just grade it a 0.
And maybe zeros get discussed when they put together those two grades, you know, one by each in the double blind, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so like there's probably a lot that goes into it. So,
yeah.
You know,
talking about examples of potential gray areas being coverage busts, quarterback or wide receiver miscommunications, meaning you ran the wrong route or not the one that we were thinking of, and missed blocking assignments. So those are the things that I remember Dr. Eager saying that they would just grade those 0 when they're just not really sure. So anyway, that was all I wanted to kind of bring that up because I know that was kind of in the chat, like a reason to say, man, this maybe just isn't an accurate grading kind of scale, but they do take that into consideration to remove that to get the best score possible.
Right. It's a good point, Mike. So one thing I saw today that I thought was pretty interesting, and let me bring this up and share my screen. Share. Here we go. And then where did it go? Can you see this chart?
It would be better if I could see it bigger.
Okay.
That's better.
Oh, it's not going to let me zoom.
That's all right.
So anyways, the Lions are down here in the lower right-hand corner. All right. So what this says is points scored above schedule average. I don't know what that part means. Points allowed below schedule average, right? So the Lions are scoring a ton of points and they are giving up a ton of points. And here they are all the way over here by themselves, right? And so I just wanted to show that real quickly because what that graph means is the Lion, they don't guesstimate, Funky. Stop. So what this means is the Lions are living by how well their offense plays, right? So when we see Campbell trying to go for and convert on all these fourth downs, that's something that he's well aware of, right? And it's like, you're going to win because you're going to score 30, 35 points a game.
Yep.
And he knows that defense is not up to par. What is different on this defense really from last year? You've added Aiden Hutchinson, and he's been okay, I guess, but he's a rookie, right? Like he is not affecting the game on every other play, like some people, Luke, thought that he should have, right? You know, you added Malcolm Rodriguez. You know, we have a friend of the podcast, William Barrich, who, you know, has been in Malcolm Rodriguez's corner since the Lions took him. And he's made the case that like if Malcolm Rodriguez was 6'1" and 10 pounds heavier, he'd be a second round pick. You know, and okay, so we'll take him in round 6. Seems like a great deal.
Right.
You know, and so and Jeff Okudah is healthy, knock on wood, and you know, playing like a starter. You know, maybe not like the number 3 overall lockdown corner that you hoped he would be, but he's healthy and he's playing like a starting caliber cornerback, and he's played well against some pretty good wide receivers, Devonta Smith, Terry McLaurin, And this week, Justin Jefferson, and he was not one-on-one by himself with Justin Jefferson. Yeah. They were rolling coverage on Justin Jefferson literally all game.
Yeah.
But like
that freed, man. He is special.
And that freed up Okudah to play underneath Jefferson, right?
Yeah.
Because he knew he had help over the top. Yeah, I know the walls have eyes, man. But like, listen, if you guys come into chat and, no matter who it is, and I can't be objective about even the things that I like, then I'm not doing you guys a service as far as I'm concerned. So like, I love Aiden Hutchinson. He beat Ohio State almost. I mean, like, it was fantastic. He went to the University of Michigan. I love the University of Michigan. He plays football the way that I like to watch football be played.
Yeah.
Like everything in me that is a fan loves Aiden Hutchinson. However, through 3 games, he hasn't been great. I mean, like he had one really solid half where he got after and just an absolute train wreck of a quarterback in Carson Wentz, right? So, and that helped the team win. And so like he had a couple of pressures in week 1, against a team that was running RPOs, and like all they're asking Aiden Hutchinson to do right off the bat is to rush the passer. And so like getting chipped, getting double teamed, clearly everybody is out there paying attention to the number 2 overall pick. And like that makes sense, and he got a couple of pressures against Kirk Cousins and 9 pressures, 3 sacks. That's all well and good, but let's put it in a context. Like I'm not going to sit here and say Aiden Hutchinson is the greatest pass rusher that's ever come into the NFL, because that's just not true yet. Yeah. Is it possible that it ends up being true? Maybe at some point. It's unlikely that he'll be the best ever, right? But like all I care about is that he is going to be a positive contributing factor to this defense, and that might take a year. It might take 2 years. It's bright lights and a lot of fast stuff for him right now. And like I know there's people out there that didn't want to take him. And so I understand why. Their reasoning is bullshit, but like I understand why they didn't want to take him. But like I cannot through 3 weeks sit here and say, hey, this is what you want from a number 2 pick, and like, to be honest, like he's just one piece on an incomplete puzzle yet.
Yeah.
Well, and so help him out.
The quarterback last year. Oh my God. Jacksonville's quarterback. He was number 1 overall. Played like utter garbage.
Yeah.
Much like Peyton Manning did his first year.
Right.
Setting the rookie interception record. It's too early. It'll be too early this time next year, for that matter.
That's true. Funky makes a good point about Okudah. Yeah, and like so, like what happened? So like he's a rookie, and they had Urban goddamn Meyer, who just created a toxic environment and did nothing for that guy to help him learn how to be a good player. You bring in Doug Peterson, who's a pretty good coach. Like he's coached in this league and he's had success.
He has just tied Urban Meyer for 5th all time on the Jacksonville all-time wins list. Games. It only took him 3 games, and he's already tied Urban Meyer for 5th all time for wins for Jacksonville.
And like, so I watched their game against the Colts. Jacksonville looks good. I mean, they look like a team that we're not the bottom feeders anymore. And like, they get ripped on for like how they spent their money in the offseason. But like Zay Jones and Christian Kirk have made plays for them. Like Trevor Lawrence looks like a guy who can play in this league this year.
Yeah. I mean, look at around the board though, like green, light green, could be better.
Right.
Green, but like they have way more green than say, let me scroll down to us.
Right.
We have green and green. Like they have really taken a step up.
Yeah. Agreed. And so like, to me, the big difference between Jacksonville and Detroit is that they have Trevor Lawrence and Detroit has Jared Goff. And they are paying Trevor Lawrence, who was the number 1 overall pick, a third, probably less than what they're paying Jared Goff. And when you can take $20 million and effectively have the same level of quarterback play.
Or better.
Yeah. And
really.
I mean, like, I would rather have Trevor Lawrence on the Lions right now. You know, like last week we talked about trading for Lamar Jackson for a hot second. But like, you know, like it's just the fact that like you have to save money on these players somewhere. You know, and you can't have a bunch of $10 million a year players strewn out across your roster and still hope to compete for like the playoffs or, you know, having winning seasons or all the kind of things that Detroit Lions fans want.
Yeah.
You know, so next week, we're not done yet by any stretch, but like next week, we are going to do a mock draft based because week 4 is usually where the season starts to shake out enough where you can tell like, okay, these teams are headed in a particular direction. So we're going to do a mock draft. We're going to run through a couple of scenarios that I prepped this weekend, some of which Mike pitched in with some good ideas. And
we're going to face guys.
Yeah, we're gonna take a look. We're going to continue to look at how this rebuild might progress, right? So do you want to talk about the Minnesota game, Mike?
Let's do that.
I took notes.
Tacos waiting for me upstairs. So
what is?
I want to get into the game and then eventually get up to some tacos.
Oh, tacos sound great.
Yeah.
So there was the TJ Hockenson sighting. He scored a touchdown. Good job, TJ. I would rather you catch 6 balls a game, you know?
He did not look good even with that.
I don't know who the Giant. I'll check on that for you, Funky, real quick here. I know that Detroit plays the Giants at some point this season, and I'm not looking forward to it. They play the Bears in New York. So should be an interesting game. Hopefully New York gets the win. One thing I did want to do is go through our schedule and kind of reassess what our season should look like, because it's going to get interesting, I think. So like the Minnesota game. So TJ Hockenson, there was a sighting. I'm glad there was a sighting. We touched on Mike Hughes and Amani Oruwariye has just absolutely played terrible. They played terrible in that game. Here's one thing that I saw. There's a ton of over pursuit and lack of containment on the defense. Like I would say that those are, I mean, having never played football and just listening to announcers talk about it for my whole life, like that's something that I would imagine you would want to fix, especially the over pursuits part. And like everybody was doing it. Like DBs were doing it. Linebackers were doing it. They just ran past the guy. He put the brakes on. Here's another 6 yards, you know, like it was driving me crazy. They had a 4th and 1 where Hockenson caught the ball. He was being guarded and it was tight coverage and they threw it behind the sticks. And like, even if he had caught the ball, there was no chance that he was getting a first down. And like, I hated the play call. You know, I'm very unhappy with the fact that they are going for it as much on 4th down as they seem to. Like,
I don't mind that. Like, I don't mind going for it when you're like 4th and 3. You're just out. I mean, they weren't doing it like inside their own 35 or anything.
Well, sure.
So then I'd be a little bit frustrated. But like 4th and 3, I mean, hell, even the nice part about the 4th and really shorts, the under 3, is when the average pass play is something like 5.7 yards. The average run play is about 3.5. For us, our average run play is higher than that. So like going for it on 4th and 3 doesn't make it a for sure pass like it does for a lot of teams. Mm-hmm. So it does make them have to play both. Are they going to run or are they going to pass? Which I think actually makes it a little bit easier for us to get those 4th and short types of things. I don't mind that. We've been really good at it. I think the play calls for the most part have been good when we've done the 4th down tries. There were a couple of them I thought were not good, where they were just quick outs, and that ball has to travel so far to go 1 yard because you're going from the middle of the field to the edge of the field. It just takes so long. You just never seem to get there. And I think it's a lot harder for those guys to catch it. At least it seems to. Those passes tend to not be as successful. So
Sure.
I don't mind the going forward as often as he has.
So here's my
in terrible situations.
Here's my problem with it, right? So this last week they were like 4 for 6. So everybody's gonna be like, oh, they're really good at it or whatever. And but the week before I think they were over 2. And you're right. So like if you're on your 35, and it's 4th and 3, like if you were to punt, if you kicked a field goal, it's a 52-yarder, right?
Yep.
If you were to punt, you're probably only getting 10 or 15 yards of field advantage, right? Here's my thing. The Lions have scored like 95 points or 93 points this year, but they've given up 91 points on their defense. Like it is as close to a 1-to-1 ratio as you can realistically expect. And like going forward on 4th down has the upside of continuing the drive, putting points on the board. I understand that. And I'm not saying that they should stop going forward on 4th down, but there are times where I'm like, get the additional 15 yards of field advantage because that's going to help your defense. Like so like we know what Campbell's going to do. Campbell wants to go for it. But like those are turnovers. Like those are chances at turnovers. And if the ball gets dropped or Goff isn't accurate or they get a free runner or whatever can happen on a play and you don't execute, then the opportunity cost is, you're giving them the ball back in better field position than they would have. And yet, so like when your defense has to defend a short field on the ones that you don't convert, it's a big problem.
Yeah.
And so like, I can understand the argument for saying he's trying to help the defense by keeping the offense on the field. Yeah, makes sense. And when they execute it, it's great. But they're going to pay for it when they don't. And so we saw that graph, like the Lions are living and dying by their offense.
Well, I think that's why you have to, right?
Well, your but that's the question.
So many points. You're like, if I make it, I extend the drive and my chances of scoring points goes up by like 70% or something like that. And if I don't make it, the chances that they're going to score are probably also 70%. Our defense is just not talented enough. They're not doing well enough that you almost have to. If you're past midfield, go for it on 4th down every time.
No, I disagree with that.
Well,
so like
maybe not every time. It's 4th and 10. You don't go for it. You punt.
Well, I mean, like, so there. I mean, like, I think where you are in the field really matters, right? So, like, if you don't have faith in your kicker, you're going to try and convert more, right? But like, for every argument like you just made, like, I can make the argument, like, yeah, okay, but like, the reverse of that is if you don't convert, you're making it even easier for that opposing offense to score on your defense. They don't have to go as far. Like, if we want to play the percentages to try and close out some of these close games, and they've all been close, I think they need to do more and be less aggressive in certain spots so that they can put the defense in a better position. You have Jack Fox, who not only is a good kicker for distance, he also has amazing hang time. Your special teams have played well through 3 weeks. They played their worst game of the season on Sunday. But like, if you were kicking from like the 45, you're 45, and you can put 3 or 4 seconds of hang time on the ball and get your coverage unit down there, he's good enough to put them in a position that's inside the 20 the majority of the time.
Right.
I mean, and that's something you can practice too. I mean, like, I get it. They're going to win the game more often than they're going to lose it with their offense, more often than they're going to lose it with their defense. But like, you sometimes make them go 90 and don't make them go 60, because that's what they're giving up with some of this aggression. And so like someone in the chat said it earlier, like live by the sword, die by the sword. Well, through 2 weeks, you're dying by the sword. Like through these first 3 weeks, like as far as I am concerned, like these little percentages that the team give back, the onside kick, the constantly going for it on fourth down, and like missing the field goals, right? Like you don't expect Siebert to do that. Like that is giving percentage points back. And he's like, well, I should have gone for it on fourth down as opposed to trying that field goal. Well, if they made both the field goals that they missed, they win the game.
Right.
So, I mean, like, and like you would have still gone for it on all those fourth downs except one if he just made his field goals, or if you hadn't blown a coverage, or, right? So, like, if the defense is struggling, don't make the opposing offense's job easy for them. Like like the Lions have proven that they can control tempo, eat clock, convert with the way that they're calling the offense. But like let's not always put that gun to our head and try and convert on fourth down. Like convert on 3 downs like every other fucking team in the NFL does. Like get better at putting yourself in manageable positions to convert on third down so you don't have to do this. And like to me it screams like you're still trying to make up for so much by going for it on fourth down that like you are going to open yourself up to variance a lot. So
what do you think about the going for 2 instead of kicking extra point?
So like I got pretty upset while watching the Minnesota game, and because Siebert missed those 2 field goals, and like I was thinking like, well, why not just cut the kicker if you're never going to fucking use them when you can't make it anyway?
I saw your post, yeah.
And like, how about we, just have a guy for kickoffs, train the punter to do like extra points or whatever. Or not even do that. If you're going to go for it on fourth down, why not just go for 2 every time?
Right.
I mean, that's the same logic, right? Like, hey, here's a play. We have to kick it from like, it's a 30-something yard extra point now, right? Why not put the ball on the 2 and try and get 2 points? 8 points. Last time I checked, 8 points was better than 7.
And so like you convert those more often than you fail them.
Maybe. I mean, like,
I think statistically it was something like 59%, 59, right around 60, give or take. I don't remember if it was just over or just under, but it was right around 60% success rate in 2-point conversions. If that's the case, go for it every time. You might miss this one. You're going to probably get the next. The odds are you're going to get the next one. If you miss 2 of them, man, you're golden. The next 3 or 4 are coming your way, statistically. But like, I would have no problems with them just going, you know what, we're gonna go for 2 every time.
So Detroit this year is 5 for 9 on fourth downs. That's 55%. So that's more than, that's better than a coin flip.
Right.
So whatever. Third down efficiency, they are 16 of 43. That's 37%. I mean,
they're probably longer though too.
The answer is, I mean, sure they are. I mean, like, that's why you're going for, like, that's why, I mean, like, you're getting, like, if you get 3 yards every 4 plays, like, you're going to convert, some of those first downs. But, like, I can't stand the fact that it's, like, we're so bad on third down that we have to go for it on fourth down. Like, the clear line of improvement for this team is to get better at converting on third down. And then you don't have to put yourself in these positions nearly as often, which I think will help the defense.
Yeah.
Because you're not, however, that's 4 times, and I don't know specifically what these 4 times were, but that's 4 turnovers. Like you could call a punt a turnover, right? But like that's 4 times additionally that you have to give the ball back to your opponent. And like if you said your opponent can start the ball on the 20, or your opponent can start the ball on the 35, what would you pick? I would pick the 20 and have to make them go 15 additional yards. And we're talking about only a handful of instances thus far through 3 weeks. But like, we have to eat. I mean, like, we have to clean some of that up, in my opinion. And like, we have to stop giving plays back. Like, and I know you're going to hate this, like every other person I've ever said it to, but like when Jamal Williams scores his second touchdown, don't do your fucking touchdown dance in the end zone. Go to the sideline, clap a dude on the helmet, celebrate over there. Don't do it in the end zone. Who fucking cares?
I mean, really though, a flag on that, right?
No. So like, here's my entire point. He was in 100% control of what he did once he scored, right? And they threw a flag, so that's his fault.
I mean,
he gave that up.
It's also one of those. To me, that's not an unreasonable thing. Like, I don't think.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for stopping by, buddy. I don't think that was an unreasonable thing to do. Like, it wasn't excessive. It wasn't anything. And you're like, wait, what? Like, I've seen so much worse. So much.
However,
it's like, are you kidding me?
The referee didn't agree with you. And that's the only fucking person in the entire situation that matters, right?
Yep.
So, like, Jamal Williams even came out and said in, like, an interview after the game, like, hey, I've done that for years and I've never been flagged for it. Well, now you have. And, like, it's a different thing kicking off from, like, what was it? The 20?
Yeah.
Or whatever it was. Like, just don't do it. Like, one of the things that, like, I always loved about Barry Sanders was he would just go and give it back to the ref and just, like high five his teammates and was happy. But it's like, first of all of the touchdown dances do absolutely nothing for me. And can every person who gets a first down not fucking point? Like, you're just doing your job.
Yeah.
It's not, every play is not a celebration. Like, I cannot stand it. Like,
I'm mixed on it. Like, I've always kind of, for the most part, I've been the same as you. It's a first down. Good job. That's what you're trying to do. It's not anything special. Barry Sanders would score a touchdown, hand the ball to the ref, and jog off to the sideline to celebrate with his team.
Right.
Brett Hull scored 742 goals, and I never see him do anything other than like a fist bump,
right?
Or, like a fist pump. Like, act like you've done it. At the same time, this is entertainment.
Sure.
This is how they build a brand.
Right.
This is how they build followers for post playing time. I don't see a problem with it as long as you're just not like I have a problem with it when it turns closer to taunting or when you do something absolutely like way more than it needs to be. But of course that's subjective, right? What is needs to be? Like mine needs to be is different from yours.
So just don't do it.
But I definitely think that I think there's room for being excited and throwing the ball up into the stands and doing a little hip wiggle or whatever. I just did something that nobody else did this entire game. This is the first touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
It's the second touchdown. It's like scoring touchdowns, scoring goals in hockey. That's awesome. Like that's the entire point of the game.
Mm-hmm.
You should celebrate when you do the thing that's really hard to do.
Great. Just don't get a penalty for it is my point.
I know.
So
I didn't think what he did was unreasonable. I would have not expected the flag, but it is completely within his control.
So I got in a conversation with someone today where it's he basically said this is the last year where not winning can be tolerated. And I was like, no one gives a shit what you think, random person on the internet. Shut the fuck up. The Lions are not paying attention to what you put out on social media and being like, guys, did you know that random ass Lions fan says that this is the last year that losing is going to be tolerated?
By him?
Snap. Yeah, by him, right? Our expectations, our opinions don't matter really. It's just fun to talk about for us because we're not actually on the team taking part in all this stuff. But my point is that whether you believe it does not, he should not have been flagged for it, is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because he was flagged for it. That's what actually occurred in the game. And my problem is he had 100% control over what he did or didn't do after he scored that touchdown. And there's still time to do it. The cameras weren't on him as far as I can tell. But I know he's a passionate guy. He's worked really hard, and he's contributing to the Lions' success in that moment. Then he hurt him.
Yeah.
You have to not do that. Like when you are talent deficient compared to the rest of the NFL, you have to not do those things.
Yeah. I go back to what is reasonable to expect. If that was like, 6 out of 10 people would say you may, even 4 out of 10 say, yeah, you probably would get a flag on that. Then I'd say that's probably not reasonable. But if you get like 1 out of 10 people or 0 out of 10 people that say, yeah, that definitely should be a flag, then I'm thinking that's within a reasonable expectation of an okay thing to do. And I wouldn't
but
be
none of those people matter unless they're NFL referees.
But the thing is that's fine. Then he goes onto the sideline and high fives, and a referee throws a flag because, hey, that was an excessive high flag. He was completely within his control, and he never should have done it because the referee looked over and saw him high fiving or waving to a cheerleader.
Sure.
I mean, those are reasonable things to be expect to do without getting a penalty. I would expect, like, to me, this was a reasonable thing. If he waves at a cheerleader and they throw a flag, what?
So like, I don't know that you can actually point to a real life example where that actually happened, but like, certainly touchdown celebrations are something that have been penalized, whether they're considered reasonable or not in the NFL for a long time. And like, yeah, you're right. But like, so we talked about this in week 1 when Tracy Walker hit Jalen Hurts, right? Like he had the option to not do that.
Yeah.
Right. So my point is, if you know how the refs are going to legislate it, don't fucking do it.
Right. Well, he now knows, so he better.
Right. he certainly did.
That's where I'm like, all right, I don't care that this happened this time because I think it was a bad call. I think it was reasonable to expect that he could do that without a penalty. Now that we know that that's not the case, I don't want to see happen again.
That's good.
Right?
Changing your mind. Right.
Well, I mean, it's not changing my mind, but I guess it kind of is where it no longer goes from reasonable. I no longer consider that reasonable to not get a penalty because some asshat threw a yellow flag and it became a penalty. That's now the bar. It better be below that.
No one likes it when a ref affects the game negatively for your team, right?
Right.
Players, fans, coaches, everyone hates it.
Yeah.
So my thing is, do not give them the opportunity to do it. Whether it's touchdown celebrations, like if the team is like, we're not going to do them, you just come back to the sideline and we'll give you an extra pat on the head or whatever. Or we'll give you $5,000 because you're not going to penalize the team and you score a touchdown or whatever. Anti-flag bounties or whatever, But like, if it's like, oh, hey, this is a running quarterback, he's probably going to run. When he's running and he's past the line, like, don't lower your shoulder and go down to the turf to hit him because we understand how the refs are going to legislate that hit. If you bang, bang, and
hit him in the head to knock him out.
Right. So like if it's bang, bang, you're going to get called for it. We understand that. Don't do that. You're effectively playing touch at that point. Yeah. And like, is that fair? No. Has the NFL legislated defense largely out of games? Yes, they have. But like all of this is known and you have to play within the structure of what you understand the rules and what they're going to be. Like if the NFL comes out and says, we're really going to crack down on defensive holding this year, don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah. No, I get that.
Like so like this is the kind of stuff where I'm like, if they have come out and said, or you have a pretty good idea that X is going to happen and that you can be like, if it's a 50-50 play, you're at fault. Don't give them the opportunity to throw the flag.
Right. No, I totally agree with all of that.
Yeah. Now everyone hates referees, so I get it. But like I've been a Lions fan too long and I've heard so much like, well, if X didn't happen, we certainly would have won the game. Vomit. Like I just can't handle it anymore. Like the excuses that like fans throw out to be like, well, we're really better than what we are. No, you're not. You're exactly what you are. And like you've contributed to your success and your failures by playing this game. cut out as many of the contributions to failures as you possibly can so that it leads to more success. You know what? Let them build their brands, but let them do it on a winning football team, right?
Yeah.
That's ultimately what's going to count the most.
We're closing in on 90 minutes, but
Yeah.
we definitely, somebody had mentioned it as well. Campbell's timeout.
Yeah.
That's what everybody's, the two things that I heard complaints about Campbell were should not have kicked the field goal, should have went for it, and shouldn't have called the timeout. I agree with the field goal. I think we should have gone for it. It was the right time. It was the right distance. We were on the right side of the field. It was a long kick. It was windy out. Both teams had missed. I think that was he screwed up, made the wrong call. It hurt, obviously. But the other one being that the timeout, I actually thought it was fine. You can go back to it and say, well, that gave them an opportunity to get a new play in, and they scored on literally the next play. So clearly it didn't help. But if you don't have the right defense, the offense in that moment, they're in the 2-minute offense, they're in the 1-minute offense, really. They know what that next play is. So if it's successful and they're going to go up there and they're going to go and do something, they already have that. They've got a plan. The defense doesn't. So there's no reason to think that, if we would have not called that penalty, they would have maybe chose a different play, or they would be less prepared somehow than the team that's reacting. I think giving your team an opportunity to get the right people in the field, get the right play call in when you're reacting and they already know what the plan is, I think that was the right call. They didn't do anything afterwards. That next play cost, they threw the touchdown pass. So, but I don't think it was the timeout that did it. What were your thoughts on kind of that whole thing and the thought process?
I'm completely unaware of it, to be honest.
Okay.
So, what was the situation?
So it was right at the end of the game. When they scored the go-ahead touchdown?
The KJ Osborne catch, yeah.
Yeah. Right before that, they had thrown a 20-yard pass or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's just a few seconds left. So they run up there, and Campbell calls a timeout.
Okay.
And that gave them the opportunity to, I guess, change the play or whatever on offense. But it also gave us an opportunity to actually get the right personnel in for what we thought was going to happen, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
They come back out. Timeout's done. They hike the ball. They throw the touchdown pass, and they're like, well, if they would have just not called timeout, then we would have, been better off. I just don't see it.
So this is the quintessential, you did something, then something bad happened, so therefore it's your fault. The problem I have with that particular play, which is what I would say is, if you had called timeout and you had a plan going back into the game, then the fucking coverage breakdown should not have happened.
Right.
So, to me, the timeout was there to increase communication and make sure everyone was on the same page and they had a plan.
Yep.
Okay. Then that broke down somewhere. That's the thing that I would be.
The plan didn't execute.
Right. Exactly. So, and of course, who were the DBs involved in that play? Oruwariye and Hughes. So, I think that figuring out why they weren't on the same page coming out of that timeout is the issue that needs to be fixed, not whether or not he called one.
Yeah.
So, I guess my opinion on it would be if I was a head coach and my defense is fucking atrocious, I would be trying to spend as many of my timeouts as I possibly could to make sure we were in the right alignments. We didn't have too many men on the field. We knew what to do in that particular situation. There's a lot of young players out there,
Yeah.
So even Okudah is a young player who hasn't played much. So I think you would want to use those things to facilitate communication, planning, structure, game awareness, those kinds of things, as opposed to we need to use them in the 2-minute drill. or whatever. So like, I don't have a problem using resources to try and help the weakest part of your team. The sin of that play is the communication breakdown that happened on it that allowed for the score.
Yep.
So
yeah, he was just getting hammered because he called a timeout that, quote, gave the other team more time to come up with a better play, and therefore they found that better play and beat us. And I'm like, that's bullshit. He called that timeout and gave his defense a better opportunity to set them. Defense is reactive. They don't know what play is going to be called. The offense does. Like, we're already reacting. You just gave yourself an opportunity to be more effective at that reaction by giving your guys time, giving them direction. Now, you got to execute, which we clearly didn't, but I don't think we gave the offense they didn't go, you know what? If they hadn't called that timeout, we were fucked. We had no idea what we're going to do. Like, that's not what was going on here, So
let's close out the episode with a prediction for the Seahawks game.
Seahawks, yeah.
So the Seahawks are coming to Detroit, right?
Yep.
So they're West Coast. They're traveling to the East Coast. I think Geno Smith has played better than I think a lot of people would have anticipated he played. I'm trying to think of like, where is Detroit better than Seattle in this one? They have 2 rookie tackles. We have a rookie defensive lineman. And like, are they going to beat us with their passing game? Are Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf going to eat the secondary up? Well, I mean,
maybe
whoever their number 2 is probably will, right? That's what we learned in the Vikings game. So like, we've lost Tracy Walker. So who's coming in? Is it Melifonwu? Is it Joseph? Is it Juju Hughes? Should be Melifonwu in my opinion. But like, are they going to exploit a new player in the secondary? So like, if I was the Seahawks, I would throw all over the Lions early and set up play action and throw to set up the run, that kind of thing.
Right at Oruwariye, make him.
I wouldn't be.
Last game wasn't a fluke.
He got targeted 11 times by the Vikings and gave up 9 catches. Like, that's sick.
And 6 penalties.
Yeah. So like, if I was the Seahawks, I'd be like, we're going there. Like,
if you think about it, if he was targeted 11 times and gave up 9 catches, had 6 penalties, there were only two plays that he was targeted that they didn't catch.
Right.
He had 6 penalties.
Right.
They still caught the ball almost every time he had a penalty.
Yeah.
Like, he was so ineffective even at the doing things wrong and getting a penalty that they still caught the ball.
So Funky asks if he's doing well enough to play, and Campbell said he thought he was ready to go. Apparently, and like, either he addressed the media on Monday, or it was like over the weekend or after the game on. I think it was after the diagnosis on Walker came in, so that must have been Monday morning. So I'm just curious to see who they put out there. My bet would be that it's Melifonwu. He's just another year older than Kirby Joseph, and
a little bit more experience.
Joey says Lions are 4.5 favorites currently, and the over-under is 50 points. So I would take the over on the 50. I think this has all the makings of a shootout.
Yep.
I would take the over on the 50, and like, so the Lions so far this year are 3-0 against the spread, and I don't know what that means, but like, I would bet against the spread on the Lions. So if that means that they're going to win by 5 or more points, that's what I would bet if I was going to. So I'll be putting every week. I've put money on who I think's going to win, whether that's the Lions or their opponent. I've been right each week. I'm up $27 because I have a lot of money to.
I'm gonna put money on it, but not a lot.
I think Tyler Lockett is a better wide receiver right now than Adam Thielen. So like, PFF, which I know you hate, has put out a stat that's like, players this year who have had 2 or more steps or yards of like must be steps of separation in and out of their breaks, and like he is leading the league with like he is tied with like Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle for how open they can get so far this year. So I think he's going to be a problem. Like I would, if I was the Lions, I would roll coverage to Metcalf like they rolled coverage to Jefferson. But then I think that Lockett's completely capable of tearing them apart. So I don't have any idea how smart he is. So like, I know that when they played the Broncos in week 1, he was on the sideline when Russell Wilson was in, shouting the hand signals to his defense because Russell Wilson, for whatever fucking reason, didn't change his fucking hand signals from when he played for Seattle last year. He's using the same hand signals for Denver. And I see there's this clip of Tyler Lockett basically like, they're running this, they're doing that. And he's just running up and down the sidelines, just shouting at his defense to let them know. Then they won the game, So like, I mean, I think Denver has had some problems and they're going to come together. I also think I heard that Noah Fant, their tight end, Seattle's tight end, has gone down at least for this upcoming week. So that's one less problem. Like covering tight ends has been a big problem for us. But like I think this game might be closer than people hope it's going to be. And I'm going to pick the Lions because they're at home. But that's the only reason. Like, I don't see that Geno Smith is that much worse than Jared Goff.
He's 67.4 right now.
Yeah. So, and like, where's Jared?
Better, I think.
Yeah. Go back to that previous screen.
Well, you're not the boss of me. Let me figure out.
I'm a partially of the boss of you. So,
well, tell that to my wife.
Well,
yeah. So
I think that he's playing better than he might not have the same stats, but I think that he's playing the game better. And like, I don't know that Seattle is that far away from where the Lions are. Like, they drafted really well. Their 2 tackles were good. They drafted Boye Mafe. He's going to rush the passer. Like, they drafted Kenneth Walker, and he's a good running back, even though I can't stand running backs. And like they already
State, so
he did go to Michigan State for 1 fucking year, because that's what you do now at Michigan State. You live off of other people, other programs developing your talent, and then you let them get the spotlight on them or whatever in East Lansing. But like, I think that they're comparable to what Detroit can do. And like, I honestly think this is going to be a shootout. I have so little faith in Goff to win those shootouts. If it was Matt Stafford, I would bet on Matt Stafford.
Oh, 100%.
But like, because I've seen him do it like dozens of times. So
I'm going to play the if game, and I'm going to say if Stafford was our quarterback, we'd be 3-0.
And we talked about that earlier in the week, and I have a hard time not believing it right this time. Like,
they were so close.
Yeah,
he's a score better than him.
Just good enough, right? Like better enough better than Goff.
Yeah.
To where I think it would have been
better than Goff, and we lost both games by less than a score.
So I think this is going to come down to can the Lions generate pressure with their front 4, and therefore stall out the Seahawks passing attack, and then what is the run game going to look like for Seattle? And like, Deandre Swift's not likely to play. So, like, I don't know that I love the idea of Jamal Williams just kind of barreling his way forward for like 3-4 yards every other play in the run game. So, like, to me, and like, St. Brown has an ankle now. And like DJ Chark had a couple of nice catches early in the Minnesota game, but he's always getting there, like another team's number 1 coverage guy. So like, is this, like if this game is like, we're betting on like Josh Reynolds and Khalif Raymond to make up the difference, I don't know that I love that.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, that's why you play the games, right? Because Lord knows the NFL season has not gone the way that I expected to yet this year. I didn't think the Raiders would be 0-3, I sure as hell didn't think the Bears would be 2-1 at this point. But like, the Lions are at home, and that matters. And like, if that is enough of an advantage, So that Tariq Woolen right there at the top, he's a rookie.
Yeah. Well, so I'm looking at this. This is the defense for Seattle. There's a lot of red, a lot of yellow, and we look at ours like we have a couple red because Oruwariye was just a dumpster fire and Barnes is terrible. But like we have a lot of green. Like we're playing well. Like
yes, but like Walker's out for the year. Kaminsky's not going to play in this game, and then that's Will fucking Harris.
It's true.
So like, I mean, it's a lot of yellow.
Yeah, but I mean that's all they've got is yellow.
I see what you're saying.
So like, well, just looking at the colors, it leans toward the Lions being better on the defense.
Okay. So, I mean, I think that the travel and playing in an opponent's stadium is probably going to be the difference in the game. I might even parlay this game and be like, we're going to take over on the 50 points and the Lions win. So I'm going to probably bet the money line and against the spread. And if I can figure out what that means. And then, hopefully like Jonah Jackson's back, and, some of these guys that have had some of these nagging injuries, they get cleaned up this week a little bit, enough to affect their performance or get them back on the field. And like, or maybe someone surprises me, like maybe Demetrius Taylor comes in and just blows shit up, right? Like who knows? So like, I'm thinking, so here's what I'll say. So the over-under is 50. So I'm going to say 31-26. Well, that's only 5. So like I'll say 35-26 Lions. Yeah.
31-26 is enough to win because it's 4.5.
Right. No, it's over. I'm taking the over. So you'd have to win by more than 4.5. So 35-26 is 9 points.
No, that's not. Yes. So the over is the 50. That's total points scored, right?
Right. So 35 plus 26 is 61 points.
Yeah, that's over. And then we just have to beat them by more than 4.5.
Right.
Points. So
I cover on both ends.
Yeah.
So I'll say 35-26 Lions.
All right. I think it's going to be a shootout as well. I'm going to go with a 31-27.
Okay.
With 26, that's such a weird number.
So like my thinking here is that they will score some touchdowns, but they will move the ball consistently and kick a bunch of field goals.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm taking shit out of the air, Mike. I'm not. I don't work for Vegas, so.
Right. All right. Well, I have one final thing to mention before we go because tacos, I can smell them. They're amazing.
I would like a taco.
You should come over. play cards, eat tacos.
I might.
Your favorite analyst, Dan Orlovsky.
No.
Is no longer the only person that's run out of the back of the end zone in the middle.
Dan Orlovsky is a piece of shit who has sold his soul to act like a court jester on ESPN, and is the only saving grace is that someone else made the same mistake that he made, Jimmy Garoppolo walking out of the back of the end zone last week, and then fucking Orlovsky kind of making fun of himself and Garoppolo about it. I think that he has no self-respect. Like Dan Orlovsky is trash. I can't stand him.
I don't mind him. Like he's doing what he needs to do.
He likes Stafford and you like Stafford. So like you're willing to give him leeway. No, I'm not.
He's an analyst. Like he's out there, he's doing what he needs to do to
Okay. He's not an analyst. All of these people now are jesters that get their marching orders and their like conversation points on an index card before they go on to their whatever stupid ass game show, Good Morning Football or whatever it is. Like those shows are not about football anymore. They are about antics. Mm-hmm. And like they have hired Dan Orlovsky because he's relatively good looking. He used to play football, and not everybody can be on camera and talk and be charismatic, and he can do that. But like he's not analyzing football. He's a piece of shit as far as I'm concerned. So like I think that like what he did in response to the Jimmy Garoppolo thing was below board and pretty classless as far as I was concerned.
Oh, I thought it was hilarious. I saw that and I laughed my ass off.
Yeah, I mean, and Funky brings up a good point. Like Orlovsky was like, I'm gonna build a house here. I'm exploring this space. Like he was out of bounds, and like Jimmy's heel was out. So I mean, like it wasn't the same thing at all, but like it was close enough for them to like bring it up again and run it a bunch of times on ESPN. It's just that like
it is right there once he steps out.
You're watching it right now.
Yeah. What's that?
You're watching it right now.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is the play in question. Let's see if I can zoom in.
That's good.
So like he's well out of bounds.
Well, he's 1 foot. Now bring up Orlovsky's and watch him run around in the white.
Oh, I know. He's both feet out.
Let's see what happened.
Yeah, I don't know if they've got. So the thing that cracks me up was I've never been happier. Freedom.
Yeah.
Just
fuck that.
Like picking on himself. Like, I'm not the only guy. Like he didn't have to bring this up that he had the exact same thing, right? Like he just completely. I don't know.
To me, this is the same kind of thing. Like, it does not matter what kind of attention we're getting, so long as we're getting attention, right? Like that is Jerry Jones has said this a number of times. Like, as long as you're talking about the Dallas Cowboys, I don't care what you're talking about in relation to us, as long as you're talking about us. And his team is worth the most of any sports franchise in the country.
Yeah.
7+ billion. Like, he's not worth what some football clubs are in Europe.
Yeah.
But like, for America, good job. But like that kind of thing, what like ESPN has like devolved into, where it's shouting matches and it's basically like a bunch of court jesters begging for your attention, whether or not it's positive or negative, and it's just about causing drama, not talking about football. Hard pass.
Yeah, it's the sports has gone the way of the political shows.
Yeah, exactly. And so like that's what forced me away from stuff like that, and that's what pushed me to PFF.
Yeah.
Because at least they're not just arguing and shouting at each other.
Yeah.
And whoever's loudest wins, as Funky says, right? Like they're having a discussion, and I would so much rather listen to a discussion than some dramatic shouting match.
Yeah. All right, man. It's taco time.
Yeah, it is. You can email us at casualgmpodcast@gmail.com, and you can be the inaugural person who sends us an email with a question. That's that honorable place on our podcast history is still up for grabs, and you can do it at any time.
In fairness, ASICS has messaged on Facebook a whole bunch of different things. So,
has he? You got to reroute him.
An honorable mention on that.
You got to reroute them here, so we will sit to the email address and we will discuss them. So, if you email us, we will discuss it on air, so long as it is clean, good questions about football and not hating on somebody or being a troll, right?
And even if it's something like my best friend Shannon, who wanted to know who Aiden Hutchinson would be in Star Wars, I thought that was hilarious.
Shannon, so glad that she stopped by.
So share the stream. We're gonna try to get up to 50 subs. So Drew will purchase a hat, and we'll have a hat selection episode.
Podcast hat.
Yeah, buddy. So like, comment, subscribe, send it around to your friends, your other Lions fans. Throw them into Facebook groups and Twitter feeds and all sorts of stuff.
I just checked, and we are up to 36 subscribers. We only have 14 to go.
We are. So, all right. Well, appreciate you all. Drew, it was good talking with you. And then we'll see how we play on Sunday.
Enjoy your dinner, Mike. Thanks, everybody.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.